showed me why. Instead of asking why, start asking why not. Time flies when you're having fun. Time flies when you're lying in the sun. Bit by bit, the older that we get, the faster it tick, 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 ticks. Time flies. Whoa, whoa, time flies.
Time flies when you're having fun with some of your favorite Rotarians. From Marshfield, actually, it's Webster County's most important Rotary Club, isn't it?
Most powerful.
Most powerful. Okay, the only one in Webster County.
Correct.
Okay. Well, okay. I shouldn't have mentioned it. Anyway, good afternoon, everyone. Lyndall Fraker here with the Marshfield Old School Times, coming at you again today. Got three good friends with me today. Chris Robinson. Chris is the current president of Rotary this year. Glad to have you with us.
Glad to be here.
Cynthia Black. Cynthia, been a longtime friend, and of course, she and then the next guest, Stan Whitehurst. Stan, believe it or not, are the two longest, most active members. Is that right? Is that the way to say that?
Longest serving.
There you go. Longest serving active member. That's why he's the county clerk. He always gets the ballot language just right. Anyway, good to have all of you here today, and we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're calling this Rotary Day in Marshfield because tonight is the Romance Raffle, which is Rotary's big major fundraiser for the year. They do a great job with this. They've been doing it several years now. It's right here in the community center in the gymnasium, and there'll be 200 people or so here probably tonight.
Yeah. Close to it.
Hopefully, and it's a great event. If you haven't got a ticket yet, I'm sure one of these three could still get you a ticket. I would imagine it.
Tickets are still available.
There you go.
At the box office.
There you go. So call me if you got my number. Text some of these, whoever you want to, but we'll get you a ticket if you want to come. So we're going to start today like we always do, and I had a guest on a few weeks ago, Gary Price. Stan knows Gary. Chris, you may too, and Cynthia, you may as well. Rex's brother. Gary Price was from Beach, Missouri, and whenever we started our show, I said, Gary, let's tell me a little bit about yourself. And he said, well, when I came to America, it was 1951. So I've borrowed that tagline or that statement from him. So Cynthia, I'm going to start with you because we're still old-fashioned here in Marshfield and Webster County, and we want ladies to go first.
Thank you.
Is that okay in today's times?
Absolutely. It is better than okay.
I thought it would be with you.
Yes.
When did you come to America?
I came to America in 1966.
Okay, 1966. Well, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, March 26th to be exact. So if anyone wants to put it on their calendar, yeah.
It's coming up. It's not too far away.
Yeah. Start celebrating my birthday now. I am a local attorney. I'm married to John Black. John Black and I have been married for 30 years. Been in Marshfield for that long, and had an office for a long time, about 25 years. And in those years, a little longer than 25 years, I served as a Webster County prosecuting attorney for a while. Served as the Marshfield municipal judge. John and I have 6 girls together. 2 of them went to Marshfield schools. The oldest one graduated from Marshfield School in 2005.
And John was previously on our podcast, so a lot of the folks that watch our show got to know John a little bit better, and we had a really good time that day. So thanks for coming today. Again, it's hard to believe because, believe it or not, I came into Rotary the very same year that you did. I believe it was 1998, if I'm not mistaken, or 97 or 98. And so I guess if I was still active in Rotary, I would be one of the three, the longest here. So, but Stan, let's move over to you. You've been on the show as well, you and Julie, and Julie's the only person that's been on our show that went to Niangua High School, so she's still very special in my book.
She is unique.
Yes, but tell us just a little bit about yourself again to brief everyone.
Well, actually, I came to America the same year as Cynthia. I know it wouldn't look that way. You would assume that she was much, much younger than I by the state of disrepair on my head. But born in 1966, born and raised in Marshfield. Actually was a student of the month for the Marshfield Rotary Club while I was in high school in 1984. Came back after college, had a business, and joined the Rotary Club in 1992. Married my wife not too long afterwards, and actually our first date was a Rotary Club function.
Is that right?
I've had the reputation as a big spender.
You're you're such a romantic. Sam.
Yeah, I know. And but it was a casino night fundraiser, and that was our first date, and we've been married now 30 years, 31.
Yeah.
Then in 1998 was elected as county clerk and have been serving in that capacity ever since. Been the president of the Rotary Club a couple of times, in the mid 1990s, and then again in more recent years. And I guess one other connection to Rotary, had the honor of being a group study exchange leader, and took a group of young people to Thailand in 1996. Spent a month there, touring the country and visiting different Rotary clubs and doing kind of a cultural exchange to try to build world understanding. And it was a really cool experience.
I bet that was fun. We'll probably talk a little bit more about Rotary International too as we go through the show. Now, Cynthia, one thing I don't want to forget here, because you didn't mention where you went to school, but I know you went to Kickapoo, and you were
Absolutely.
extremely good friends with Brad Pitt, right?
Go Kickapoo, go Kickapoo. Yes, yes.
Extremely good friends with Brad
Yeah,
Pitt, right?
Brad Pitt is just awesome. Yes, yeah.
Okay, Chris, you're up.
Well, my name is Chris Robinson. I am a post-mortem vascular surgeon.
Now, why don't you, now for us, we're from Webster County. This is Marshfield. Tell them what that means.
Well, I am Webster County's only dual licensed funeral director and embalmer.
Okay.
I work with this gentleman to my left. Does it work out left or right when you're on camera? I don't know that part, because
You're good.
I did time in Texas. That's a long time ago. But I work with this gentleman's cousin, Dale Fraker, and I work with Gary Fraker over at Fraker Funeral Home as a funeral director and embalmer. I've been licensed for 30 years. So when Gary was still with us and Jackie was still with us, we had over 150 years experience at Fraker's. So it is an honor to serve citizens of Webster County. I grew up in Springfield, was born and raised in Springfield. Another 1960s entry, but I came in at the last moment, December of '69. So I just made the 60s, and so I can, well, no longer let my hair down but I came in the 60s, 1969, and was in Springfield until Dad got transferred to Minnesota. I did my time in Minnesota. I hate snow. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. One day of it, Christmas is enough for me, and then I'm done. I'm happy with that. I've been a Rotarian since 2007 when I was in Texas, and I loved every minute of it. And now I'm president of this great club, the most powerful Rotary club in all of Webster County.
That's right.
And enjoy exchanging ideas and information with other great people in this
Very
county.
good. I think one question a lot of people probably ask you, and I've probably asked you, is, are you related to any of the other Robinsons in Webster County? Because there's a lot of Robinsons.
Dennis Robinson is from here. We are not related. I am from the Laclede County Robinsons, around Competition, the Gasconade River, and my family was all horse thieves. So
Okay.
not any relation to Dennis.
Gotcha.
They were the good Robinsons.
Well, and you had there's probably other segments that may go way back there somewhere. You may connect like some families do, but
yeah. Now, while Cynthia had Brad Pitt in her class,
yeah.
when I was in Minnesota, we had someone in our class. He's done a little something with his life. Not that I associate with him, but Dennis McDonough, who was the former chief of staff for President Obama,
Okay.
was one of my friends and classmates.
That's good. That's neat.
Yeah, it's sort of neat,
You'll have to get him to the Cherry Festival. Talk to Nicholas.
Yeah, I'll have to talk to Nicholas, but I associate with some different party officials. So
Okay. Well, we're not political here.
I know that.
Too much. Well, that's great, Chris. Thank you. So I might mention as well, I joined Rotary in 97 or 8, I think can't remember the exact date, but and I was active in the club until I got elected to state representative, and then I was gone many Tuesdays, and so kind of went on the inactive status. But I might consider coming back now that I'm back home all the time. So if you would have me, you may not want me, but
We would welcome you.
okay, that's great. Well, Rotary is a great organization. I've certainly enjoyed my days in Rotary here in Marshfield. We had a really good group of people, did a lot of things in those days, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So why don't you guys, and I'm just going to let you tag team and contribute as you want to, but let's talk a little bit about the history of Rotary in Marshfield. And I know the club was chartered in what, 1968. So Stan, you've probably been around the longest. Why don't you kind of kick it off and talk a little bit about the old days?
Sure. Well, and of course, in 1968, I was 2.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people would look at me and say, well, he'll remember what that was like at that time. But no, the club was formed in 1968. Basically, a group of Rotarians from Lebanon came and recruited a group that was willing to come together, and they had their charter night in August of 1968. I had about around 25 people that were signed on, and basically the charter president was William Spinabella, which everyone knew as Spinny, and basically I think they started out of the gate really active. Looking back through the kind of club history, within a year they were hosting a group study exchange team from Australia. They'd started their main fundraiser, which was a radio auction, not long
Remember
after they
those days,
started.
yeah.
And then also looking through the old scrapbook, saw that one of their early fundraisers was a musical program where they invited singers from the Fordland Honor Camp to come and give a concert. And it was a fundraiser for the Good Samaritan Boys Ranch, which I thought was a really good example of community service.
Absolutely.
And the spirit that Rotary aspires to.
Connecting people together. I'm going to show, we have a hokey way of showing pictures, but it works. I'm going to show a picture of the first charter member officers. Because some of you folks that watch the show, I know we've got some folks that watch the show that were around in those days. There's Bill Schroeder, Howard Filmer, down below Herb Brozzi, Mr. Spinabella in the center. That's Henry Kohlmeyer, right? Yeah, and then in the back you have Wallace McCaskill and Richard Halliburton on the, I give be the right there. But those were the charter officers, and of course they've all passed away except, of course, Bill. And Bill lives in Texas, and he's still a member of the Marshfield Rotary Club, right?
That's correct.
He and Neva both, and so they would certainly he'd be the longest member. And here's a group picture of that first group of men in the club. Won't take time to read all the names, but some may pick out a picture there or a person. And the Lebanon Rotary Club, I think, is the club that kind of came down and helped get Marshfield started, the way I understand. Go ahead, Stan.
Well, as you said, most of the folks who started the club back then have passed on. Did we mention Dr. Bryce?
No.
One of the charter members.
No, we didn't.
And he was just a real bedrock member for a couple of generations, and just someone who was just consistently there and a guiding light to the group. So I would definitely want to mention him.
Well, I can actually let me list the members real quick, because I think that's interesting. We showed the picture of the officers, but you had Frank Andretta, Wilson Banna, Bob Bryce, Herb Brozzi, Bill Brooks, Calvin Birchfield, Howard Filmer, Paul Gillum, Richard Halliburton, who was actually Spinney's son-in-law, Henry Kohlmeyer, Don Kruger, David Lawson, A.F. Martin Jr., Wallace McCaskill, Bill Schroeder, Jim Sellers, Gene Southwick, William Summers, Norman Turnbow, he was a Reverend Turnbow, Ellis Young, of course Ellis we just had on the show a couple weeks ago, Joe Ryan, John Holland, and William Popejoy. Those were the charter members.
So Ellis is still with us as well.
Yes, absolutely. That's right. Just not in the club.
Just anymore.
Yeah.
I would say that again, the club got off to a really strong start, and they were doing a lot of activities by the early '70s, and actually by the mid '70s, Howard Filmer became a district governor, which in Rotary is a big deal, and basically was the leader of the different Rotary clubs for this area of the state. And Marshfield was actually the host of a district conference in the mid '70s, and actually held it in Springfield, but marketed as Springfield being one of Marshfield's suburbs, and that type of thing. And I think that was actually maybe the same year that you were a student of the month and a visitor to Rotary.
I was student of the month, probably around 77, I would imagine, 76 or 7. Yeah, Mr. Walker was a member, and he brought a student over each once a month, I think, and attended Rotary. It was really impactful. It was very good. And I was the student body vice president that year, and then my senior year. And then I know the student body president, Brian Carter, came the next month. So
I think during that year, I see some references where Rotary had a presence in the 4th of July parade and won an award for the float.
now tell us what that was, because I remember that. They was a great presentation.
So it became an annual tradition for a period of time that Rotary would have some type of presence in the 4th of July, and it, you say, either evolved or devolved into a situation where Rotary formed a precision drill lawn mowing team. And I think that the ringleader on that was Mike Ahrens. And so people would ride their lawnmowers and do figure eights and different things and make just kind of a really irreverent presence, right? And so one of the things, Mike Ahrens would dress up like a superhero with a cape and would get his push lawnmower and run up a ramp and see how many things he could jump. And they would lay little Hot Wheels cars down between the ramps, and he would see how many cars he could jump with his push lawnmower. And just kind of crazy.
Something Evel Knievel would do or something.
Yeah.
And would you say this was sort of a satire of maybe the Shriners with their go-karts and their clowns and so forth? Yeah. Okay.
And then there was a serious side too. I mean, that same year, one of the service projects they did was, they cut firewood during the late '70s when the utility prices were high and that type of thing. They cut firewood and gave it to people who were in need. And so, there was a serious side too.
Right.
Now, when I was looking through the book, I saw one year they talked about the Rotarian Rockettes. And I don't know if you remember the Rotarian Rockettes, but I think it was still an all-male club at the time.
Yes, it was. There was a few years running where a group affiliated with the high school would have a musical variety show as a fundraiser for the music programs. And so the Rotary Rockettes, I actually have a pretty clear memory of it, of being maybe a sophomore in school. And all these prominent men from the community being up on the stage in the old gym. And they did a number where they were the Mouseketeers, and they put on the little mouse hats and that type of thing and said, "Hi, I'm Billy, I'm Dr. Bob," that type of thing. And it brought down the house. I mean, they didn't take themselves too seriously. But it was great fun.
And that was sort of a knockoff of the old alumni banquet days years and years ago, maybe 20 years prior to that, when they had a showgirl review of Marshfield business people, alumni, that did if you recall, did a song and dance number or something. So kind of in the
have Mac Case come out in a dress.
Exactly. Dale Hyde.
Yes.
Well, he mentioned service projects. Service projects have always been important to Rotary. When Rotary started back in 1905 in Chicago, started off with 4 people. By 1906, they started their first service project. And we do service projects here, and we'll get into that, or Stan will get into that in a minute. But their first service project in the big city of Chicago were these, trying to think what they called them.
comfort station.
comfort stations. We would call them public toilets.
Okay.
But this was a need that these group of men in Chicago figured out that they had to have in this area, and they gathered their resources, they pooled funds, and that's what they set out to do. And we do the same thing right here in Marshfield, like with Rotary Park, which he'll talk about in
Right.
just a minute. So service projects are something that we look for. We look for a need in the community. And we go out and with funds that we collect, like through our romance raffle tonight, that's what we go out and find. And we may not, throw a big parade and say, hey, look what Rotary's doing. We find a need and we do it.
Right. And your motto, even, I think part of your motto is service above self, right?
Service above self.
And then, Cynthia, can you recite the four-way test?
Oh, great. I sure can. First, is it the truth?
Okay.
Second, is it fair to all concerned?
Mhm.
Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Very good.
And I didn't even know you were going to ask that.
No, I
even
didn't.
prepare
That's
for
right.
it.
Yeah, that's right.
I
It was just your turn to talk, so
yes,
that's why I asked you.
I recite that to the kids when we do our Don't Meth With Us program. We talk about what that means, what Rotary means.
No, yeah, we want to hear more about that too.
Yes.
You spoke about Rotary beginning in 1905. Tell them who the founder was and a little bit about him.
Paul Harris from Chicago. He was a attorney in Chicago, and very well respected person. And he gathered some business people together for one, just gathering their collective thoughts of what could be done, and also to put business people together with other business people as a networking group of how we can all help each other and better our community.
Right.
And that is how Paul Harris started. And he was good friends with another gentleman in Chicago. Matter of fact, they're buried just a few feet apart. The gentleman who started the Lions Club.
Really?
So, and
Didn't know that.
it's just
Yeah.
all these service organizations are here to help each other and help their community.
Yeah.
And of course, we are the most powerful Rotary Club.
That's right.
But we're a group of business professionals and community leaders that want to help our community.
And it's kind of interesting to think about, churches do a fantastic job in communities of helping people, and certainly that's part of their calling to do that. But civic clubs sort of cross all boundaries. A church may offer things to the community, but as far as, whatever their particular church is doing, it may stay a little bit more within kind of their congregation, and then internationally with missions and things like that, which is all great. But the civic clubs do things like the fair and the parks and things like that you might say blood, sweat, and tears go into some of the projects that civic clubs do. So it all works together hand in hand in a community to make the community better.
Well, and we do cross boundaries.
Yeah.
Like we help out the Boy Scouts. Matter of fact, 2 years ago, I believe it was 3 years ago, we helped rebuild their climbing tower. Boy Scouts don't have the money like they used to.
Right.
And so we spent a couple $1,000s to help rebuild that. So out at Camp Arrowhead, they've got something.
Right.
No big fanfare.
Yeah.
It was a need. We took care of it.
Do you think, Stan, that today we rely on the government to do a lot of things that individuals and clubs and organizations such as Rotary did back in those days 100 years ago?
Well, I think that's true. Service clubs in general, are a little bit on the decline right now, and I'm hoping that that's a temporary decline. And I think back to when I was first in the club in the early '90s, right after the fall of the Soviet Union, and I remember someone coming down and talking about how difficult it was to expand Rotary into the former Soviet bloc, because the people with the Marxist upbringing couldn't conceive of business people and community leaders coming together, conspiring to do good,
Helping each other.
to help each other.
Yeah, yeah.
That concept was
Right.
challenging to them, and it was at first an obstacle to Rotary expanding. And I think maybe that is a bit of a competition. Of course, I think the other things that are kind of threatening service clubs to a degree, social media is providing people a different form of connection, which I wouldn't see as a good substitute.
No, right.
And then also, I think COVID was a temporary setback. But I really do think that service clubs provide a really valuable function, provide a good outlet, fulfilling purpose for people. And so I think they're going to come back strong.
Another thing you think about, these clubs all began prior to the Great Depression, before we had Social Security, before we had the income tax. That all occurred, in the 20s and 30s. And so people needed other people to help. And that was a way for business people, successful people that had been, much had been given, much is expected. And I think that probably helped fill that bill with people.
Well, back in during the Spanish flu, Rotarians were really responsible,
Right.
took the responsibility on themselves to help people that were sick and that were dying.
Right.
Back in 1979, Rotary took on the responsibility of polio, which didn't affect our generation as much as it did our parents' generation in the 40s here in the United States, because we had the polio vaccine.
Yeah, it did affect us. We got the shot. They kept us
yeah.
from getting it. I mean,
But in 1988, the year I graduated high school, 125 countries across the world still had polio running rampant, which is hard for us to think about, but we still had seen people that had the heels on their shoes that were like this because of malformations. But Rotary went in and said, we're going to make a difference. 125 countries in 1988 still had polio running rampant. Now, because of Rotary and our Polio Plus program, there are only 2 countries that still have polio. Because one of the things that we've done as Rotarians is making sure people have polio vaccine that will take it. There's 2 countries that are still keeping us out. But we're also making sure that internationally, clean water. It's in the water.
Water
and so
wells.
that's something that we do as Rotary International. But I know we're talking about a lot of things that we do locally.
yeah, no, we want to talk about all of it. That's
But
good.
On the local level, government doesn't do things, for the little individual. One of the things I've taken great pride in our club in doing is every November we have a white elephant sale. And some of the things that come out, I feel sorry for the Rotarians that aren't able to make it that day, because they get stuck with things that someone didn't want. But in the past several years, like this year, we raised over $2,500 just amongst our little club. And we've gone out and we've bought Christmas presents for some families that we've found out through the high school or through the school district that wouldn't be able to afford Christmas.
Yeah.
And we've come together, we've bought the presents, we've come together, wrapped them, and then we give them back to the high school. We don't know who the families are, but then word gets back to us. They've had a good Christmas.
And that's sort of part of the share your Christmas.
It's sort of like that,
Yeah.
but it's just sort of following the motto, he who profits most, who serves best.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to serve our community, not only the big things like a big tower,
Right.
but the little things.
Right.
And it's a lot of fun, and we're having fun while we serve.
You bet. Or maybe one of the more little things in the big scheme of things compared to water wells and polio eradication. Tell us about the Easter egg hunt. you've been very instrumental in that over the years.
So for about the community Chamber of Commerce used to do the Easter egg hunt, and one year they felt like it was just too much for them to do. So Rotary stepped up and said, we don't want to let that go. We want to make sure that we continue with the Rotary Easter egg hunt. So then for the about the next 20 years, our club came together and we would have Easter egg hunts for the kids. We'd get thousands of eggs and we'd get them here locally. We would put some gold coins in or silver dollars, some sort of coins. We would put in the Easter eggs, a few of the Easter eggs, so that a few kids would have an extra special Easter egg hunt. But over the years, there's been thousands of kids enjoy the Easter egg hunt for Rotary.
It's been a great tradition, and of course, Stan, they were doing that when we were kids. You know, the Chamber of Commerce, they used to have it down at the fairgrounds, or and you know, we moved it over to Hubble. But and then now after COVID, I know COVID, the whole world changed. But then there's a church or two that have picked that up and took that over and do a great job with that. As a matter of fact, they've done it here right on our campus here in the field behind, and just lots of. And again, it may seem like a small thing, but to a kid that's 4, 5, or 6 years old, it's a big thing. And while you stuff $500 worth of gold dollars in 7,000 eggs, you know, it may not seem like much, but the kid that gets that gold dollar, you know, he may only get 2 of those, or 1 or none, but it's a big thing. So I was a part of that as well, and always enjoyed it, and glad that you all were able to carry that on. Tell us about the park, Rotary Park. That's another big thing for Rotary in Marshfield, probably your biggest project in all.
I think that's what we're most identified with in the community, and it started back in the mid '80s. The city had the park that's by City Hall on the highway, and it really was kind of featureless. It was just kind of open ground without there wasn't a playground or shade or that type of thing, or the walking trail that you see now. And so in the mid '80s, the club raised funds and spent $15,000, which would have been quite a sum then.
It would have been a lot.
To install the first playground equipment. And then followed up a couple of years later, helped finance and actually did the physical labor to construct the pavilion on site. And so after that, I think just in slang, people just started referring to the park as Rotary Park. And then that's kind of developed from there, where Rotary was involved a decade later in getting some grant funds to put in the walking trail and bridge. And along with that, then developed kind of a program to install a lot of the trees and create shade and make it a more appealing park. And so even today, for instance, last year we painted the concession stand building there, just as kind of some volunteer labor, and then we paid for a contractor to repaint the fence, you know, just to kind of help the city keep that as a premier feature in town.
Right. The fence, the Rotary helped build that as well. And then there was one other thing. I've lost my train of thought here. I was listening to you, I was intensely, and I thought of something else, and I forgot what it was.
Well, and I'd like to say in 1997, when Dick LaBoito was president, the park had started becoming a little dilapidated, and so I was pretty new to the club, and he scared me by saying, "I'm putting you in charge of this. We need a bigger and better park. We want to improve the park." And it is amazing how the community came together to help us. Steve Deckard was an architect. He helped draw an improvement of the park that would help handicapped disabled kids. I have a lot of very fond memories of working at the park. One of my favorite memories is Don Fraker bringing his tractor
Mhm.
all the way to the park
Mhm.
so that he could help us. And
He
so,
did, yeah.
um,
Move the mulch with it and
yes.
everything. Yeah. Yeah. And he looked forward to that. He
Yeah.
might complain a little bit, but he liked it. We also, I think, persuaded or at least continued to request that the city pave the parking lot because it was a chat gravel parking lot, and they eventually did and made a very nice entrance there to
Yes.
the park. We did the brick pathway that we sold bricks as a fundraiser. You know, back in those days, Rotary just didn't have much money, and the fundraisers we did didn't bring much money. Matter of fact, the dues were the best way we got things done. It seemed like, but maybe sell some pecans or something. But what we're able to do with very little limited funds, very rewarding. And you know that walking trail, you know, turned out that was kind of at the beginning of the, you might say, the fitness craze for outdoor walking trails. At least in Marshfield, I don't think we had one. We had the track to school. It's the only one I'm familiar with, and it was so well received, and it's been so well used over the last 25 years. It was a great thing to do.
Parks take a lot of maintenance.
Yes.
And just a lot of consistent effort. And in the early years, I think Mike and Rob Aarons did a lot
Yes.
of volunteer work, just tinkering on the equipment, making sure it's in good working order and that type of thing. And then, you know, just every few years, we have to kind of re-inject a little enthusiasm and set some goals because, you know, that park gets a lot of use.
It does.
And with that requires a lot of care. One thing I forgot to mention too is for a long time, the ground beneath the playground equipment and the swings, whatever, that was mulch that we'd have to hire, whatever. But now there's been an improvement with, again, some grant funds where we were able to get that rubberized surface, that pour in place surface. So now, you know, when the little kids fall off the slide or something like that, they've got a soft landing.
I know what I was going to say earlier too. It was about that time that the city came up with the Adopt a Park program, and logically, the park that's now Rotary Park would be adopted by the Rotary Club, and I think that was very instrumental in getting the park named Rotary Park after the Adopt a Park. All the other parks in town were also designated by various organizations or individuals to adopt and help take care of, but that whole era of parks in Marshfield really opened people's eyes, raised awareness, made the community kind of buy in to improving the parks because they had all kind of been stagnant for years and did need some extra attention. And because there was no money, the city didn't have any money in those days, and so that really helped to kind of change the mindset that parks needed to be funded and needed to have some priority placed on them. We had whenever I know Neva Schroeder was very instrumental in the tree planting, and we had the trees, the memorial tree. I forget the official name. You got to
Heritage Celebration Trailway.
There you go. Huge project that took, you know, it's still ongoing because those trees have to be watered and cared for and pruned and such. But they planted one in honor of Governor at the time, Matt Blunt's son, you know, and had a celebration, ribbon cutting or a groundbreaking for that. So, and then you might mention all the memorials around, you know, the bench and so forth.
The concept behind the Heritage Celebration Trailway was that there'd be a variety of different types of trees. So as you're walking the trail and enjoying the shade, you would see different species of tree. But there'd need to be a marker to kind of let you know that this was a river birch or this was a bald cypress or whatever. And so the idea became that people could dedicate those markers to a specific individual. And so a lot of those markers in the park have the names of people who've passed and been dedicated by a family member or just dedicated to a living person who had an interest in volunteerism or whatever. And so, you know, as you're strolling around the park, you might look for those and learn a little bit along the way.
Exactly.
And Doug Andrews, who's a Rotarian, is working on new trees place out there this
Okay.
year. So
Good.
that is an ongoing
Ongoing.
project.
Yeah.
And we look forward to new trees this spring.
Right.
The
The-
city has, I
Yeah,
want to say, the
yeah.
city has really stepped up and become a good partner
Yes.
with Rotary Park. And so we appreciate that as
You
well.
bet. The bridge. Talk a little bit about the bridge.
The since the trail was put in with grant funds, there were some requirements that came along that kind of interrupted the original concept. The original concept was that this was going to be a path that would lead to maybe a little hand bridge that we would construct ourselves and that type of thing. But since it was put in with state funds, the little hand bridge turned into an engineered bridge that was, a little stouter than what we could do ourselves. But it's dedicated to Howard Filmer, and Howard, Rotary was a big part of his life, and he again was district governor in the mid-70s. And when I joined the club in '92, there was this. It was a different time, and again, it was an all-male club, and the expectations were a little different. But every new member would be invited over to Howard and Marion's house. You were expected to bring your spouse and sit down for what was called a fireside chat, where he would talk about what Rotary had meant to him and how the
Really?
expectation was that this was a lifetime choice, that you were making a commitment to serve, and all those kind of points were brought home. And Howard was kind of the tip of the spear on that. So
It's neat. I didn't know about that.
uh,
I'm sure Mrs. Filmer had some homemade treats there.
Oh, yeah.
That's great. That's great.
And of course, she was the long-term librarian and a stalwart in the community.
Now, prior to the ladies becoming full-fledged Rotarians, they were Rotarians. So they were an auxiliary, right, to help support things such as that. Make sure the desserts were ready for the group, things like that, right?
You're right, and of course, Rotary was drawn into change
Sure.
by court action. And you mentioned, Chris, you mentioned that it was actually went all the way to
The United States Supreme Court,
in the 1987.
1987.
And so Rotary was by fiat opened to women membership, and in Marshfield that came about in around say 93, 94 or so. And Neva Schroeder was one of the first female members, and she was of course married to Bill Schroeder, who was a charter member, so that's great. And the other lady that joined at the time was Faye King. Is that
Faye King, I believe it's
So, yes,
in the history
yes,
book. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so since that time, it's pretty balanced in terms of the number of when we bring a new member in. The club is this much. It's pretty evenly divided by gender, and it's the opening has been a really good thing.
Sure.
Martha Myers was a past president. Currently, Amy Wilkerson, she was a past assistant district governor.
Okay.
So very active Rotarians.
Yeah.
And Cynthia was governor, or not governor, but president, not once, but back to back for us.
Really?
Well, and actually, so I was previously
Yeah.
President.
Back in the
Yes,
days when
right.
it came in.
So-
not long.
So I've actually had the opportunity to be president for 3 years.
3 years.
So during COVID, I got kind of stuck. I got the opportunity to be president for 2 years.
And
so.
she was absolutely fabulous during COVID to keep us together and keep our club going. We did not go online. We kept going.
Well, that's great. That's good.
And
Tell me about Don't Meth with Meth.
Yeah, so Amy Wilkerson and I have a program that we go give to schools. It's sort of a DARE program, and we present them to all the schools in Webster County, and it's for 5th graders, and it's a Don't Meth With Us program, and it's an assembly that we go talk to the entire 5th grade classes, and so we go to the gym or what have you in the school. We do this every year, and we talk about the dangers of drug use, particularly Don't Meth With Us is the name of the program. So so and there's some, you know, pictures of people who have used meth that are just downright frightening to the kids. And when we leave there, it seems to be burned in the kids' mind that they don't want to have anything to do with meth. And of course, unfortunately, in our world, we have to talk about heroin use and
Right.
all prescription drugs. And but the kids really honestly seem to enjoy it. The schools are gracious. Typically, it's a school resource officer that invites us while he's doing the DARE program. So we do that every year. And so we've had an opportunity to talk to many kids as a result of that.
That's great. That's awesome. I guess the DARE program is it still active too in school?
Yes, it
Okay.
is.
So,
Yes.
So you mentioned polio. I know when I was in the club, that was just a huge thing to try to get polio eradicated around the world. So you gotten about as close as they're going to get, at least, because a couple of countries won't let them in, and the rest of them. So they pretty much conquered that. Water wells was another big project internationally. I assume that's still going on as well. Anything else internationally that you know of, or you'd like to share on that?
One of our big pushes also is helping women and children, helping women in smaller and third world countries receive access to health care, nutrition, and also to help them from sex trafficking, to keep them aware of what's going on, and just education. And so that's very important. I mean, Rotary has got 7 different programs that it's really involved in. Education is one of them. Polio, water, the protecting women and children. That's very big. And so most of us as Rotarians give money to the Rotary Foundation, which goes to that. The Rotary Foundation gives back to our local community when we request money for grants. So they help us not only in helping, when we help other people in other places, they help us back here in Marshfield and Webster County.
Well, I think that brings us to tonight's event. Talk about what's going on tonight, whichever one of you wants to.
Someone is going to win $5,000 tonight by coming to dinner with.
And they don't have to go to Downstream.
They don't.
And the odds are better, right?
The odds are a whole lot better.
Right.
We sold how many tickets, or how many tickets are available?
So there are 200 tickets available. So you have 1 in 200 chances if you buy one
Pretty
ticket.
good. Yeah, that's a pretty good chance to win $5,000.
And it's certainly legal, and it's all okay, because John Black wouldn't be coming if it wasn't. I know
Exactly.
that. I know that for a
I
fact.
heard he was coming as Fred, though.
Well,
You had to come with the Chamber of Commerce.
I have a feeling.
banquet
I have a
to
feeling if he
understand that.
won, his ticket would be in Cynthia's name. I'm sure.
Yeah.
But we're having besides that, someone winning that, we're having a live auction, and there's some pretty neat
I
things.
saw some over there on the table. There really is some neat things.
There is
Tools and things that I can even
tools.
use. Yeah.
Some Kansas City Chiefs items. If you haven't got roses for your sweetheart, or there are some roses that are going to be auctioned or in the silent auction. In the live auction, there is a grill. There is a
Rocking chair.
there is a handmade rocking chair by the Amish over in
Wow.
Seymour. There is a guitar that is signed by the Oak Ridge Boys and the Gatlin Brothers.
Wow.
So that's
That's cool.
considering the Gatlin Brothers have been going together for 65 years.
Yeah.
The Oak Ridge Boys are on their farewell tour.
Right.
So that's a pretty
That
neat
is a pretty
deal.
neat deal. Yeah.
Um,
I just got a memo here. The donut shop, old school donuts, are donating 18 and a half dozen donuts.
Oh, wow.
For you to auction
That's
off.
great.
that's great.
Yeah.
So
And if you haven't had an
Appreciate
old
you
school
for that.
donut, they are. I mean, they put Krispy Kreme to shame.
they are good for sure. Well, that's good. That's going to be fun.
And so there's just a bunch of things over. There's a $500 meat beef deal that's going to be auctioned
Oh,
off.
be-
There's some guns.
There are some guns. Can we say that on here?
if John
Sure.
Black's is said
Yeah.
he can,
Sure.
Uh,
you can.
he'll be. I mean,
yeah.
he'll be a big
The
bidder. on
lawyer
that.
says we can.
Yeah, and there's some that are going to be in the live auction and some that are going to be raffled off. So that's going to be neat. And plus, there is a dinner that's going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
I have sampled.
What's on the
food.
menu?
Pecan crusted chicken,
Mm.
beef tips, homemade rolls. Can't remember.
Well, you've got the main
There's
course.
dessert,
Yeah,
there's green
yeah,
beans,
Cool.
water, tea, and there are. This is 21 and over. There's no younger ones there, so there are adult beverages for those who would imbibe.
Mhm.
All we ask is someone have a safe driver home.
Oh, yeah.
Just make sure you do that.
Well, that sounds like a great, great time. Now, what do you all plan to do with the proceeds? What do you do? I mean, I know you've talked about what you do, which is a lot, but I mean, you're going to raise a few $1,000s tonight for your club, which again, in the old days, we didn't have that luxury.
I think scholarships.
yeah.
are-
There you go.
Scholarships, big
Talk
piece
a
of it.
little bit about what you do with
We
your
do
money.
2 scholarships annually
Yes.
for high school students. It's $1,000 a piece, I believe. And we've done that for several years going back. I think that then, of course, we're going to do another initiative in the park.
Yes, we've got large initiatives in the park this year.
Anything you ready to talk about? That's okay if you're not.
Not yet,
Yeah,
not
it's okay.
yet.
It's okay. Yeah.
We've got to
Yeah.
nail some things down.
Sure.
But, a few years ago, we did the new concession
Mhm.
stand.
Yeah. Very
And
nice.
that was a large
Big project.
project
With
Right.
bathrooms at the park. That's really
with
important.
bathrooms.
Yeah.
Need
Absolutely.
bathrooms.
So there's going to be some other
And
initiatives.
you've done work around the pavilion too. I know it used to stand water, and I know you did some drainage work and landscaping. It's not, a real visible thing, but it was very important to help, when you're over there working, not being in the mud.
But one of my initiatives this year is we are just a couple of years away from our country's 250th birthday.
That's right.
And so I'm looking at, for my presidency, to work on a project that will affect our 250th birthday, that will leave a lasting memorial here in Marshfield for that.
Right.
So we're still nailing some things down on that.
And of course, when we did the walking trail, started that and the bridge and all that was Paul Harris Fellows 100th. What was it? It was the 100th year of Rotary, right?
So 2005.
Yeah.
And was that the year that they had the hot air balloons in the park?
No,
And the
that
rides.
was
That was a different thing.
yeah,
That was,
yeah. That was before that.
That was in
97 or
97.
8 or 9, somewhere in there. It was one of our first years that we did the Easter egg hunt.
Yes.
And that was the hot air balloon event. Was,
Yes.
Oh, that was the 100th Independence Day parade, was what that was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
May have
on
been.
July 4th. Yes.
But that was pretty cool. Should also mention Rotary was instrumental in bringing youth soccer leagues to Marshfield. The first youth soccer was the result of a Rotary project.
I don't think I even knew that. That's good.
And you mentioned Dick LeBoyto, and I'm glad that you did. He was a really instrumental.
Chateau Leboito. On the side of his truck. Chateau Leboito. I don't know if that was Charles or that was just his own little name he made up. But
Well, he was just a character. And so you've heard us say a couple of times, that we're the most powerful Rotary Club in Webster County, and the joke being we're the only. But that was Dick LeBoytoism,
yeah.
and he kept the good humor flowing for as long as his membership lasted, which unfortunately his health gave way.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Wow, there's been a lot of Marshfield people that have contributed to your club over the years. I mean, just names that you would affiliate or associate with Marshfield. And if you take the Rotary Club, the Optimist Club, the Lions Club, the BNPW Club, which was probably the only women's club back in the day, where women could actually attend. As far as a national club, now there's smaller clubs around. PEO was
PEO,
one, yeah, and a good they're still active and very good club.
Masonic Lodge.
Masonic Lodge. But when you take all of these clubs and you think about the community members that have been involved in at least one or more even, it makes up a huge number of people in our community that have given back in some way. And then when you couple that with the fact that most of them have been involved in churches in their lives over the years, it's just a remarkable thing to think about giving and how we take for granted what people do. Because as I said, it's sort of the thing to think about, what does government do for us and how we expect government to do so much, but really it's the people in the communities that do the most for communities. And these are great ways and great avenues to get those things done. So it's been fun. We're going to end today with the 4-way test. Now Cynthia knew it, but I thought it'd be good if just all 4 of us do it, because at each meeting you start the meeting with a pledge, right? 4-way test, and I believe an invocation, correct?
Prayer,
A
yes.
prayer. So we'll end with the 4-way test. Now Logan's not back yet, so we got a couple more minutes. If there's anything else you guys would want to add before we end for the day, I really appreciate you coming. This is going to be fun, and I might mention to the viewing audience, I have asked the Lions Club to come in and do the same thing with the history of their club, and I've also asked or talked to a member or 2 of the Optimist Club, and so we plan to get them lined up. I also have talked to the PEO Club. They actually met here in our facility last Saturday and had a great meeting. And so we want to try to bring all those community clubs and organizations in to give their history, and that because that's what we do. We're here for history, to document history, to make sure that the future generations kind of know who and why Marshfield is what it is. So.
Could I
Yeah,
mention
absolutely,
something?
Stan.
I'd like to actually read something from the Marshfield Mail, July 25th of 1968. And it was about the founding of this
Okay,
new club,
great.
this new and strange club. And the last paragraph that one of the Waters wrote was, so we look forward to great things from our new Rotary Club. It begins its existence at a time in world affairs when men need to be increasingly motivated by ideals that strengthen families, communities, and nations. We wish for it every success.
Awesome. That's
And you
great.
think about all the different things that have, since 1905, when the group was founded, World War I, the Spanish flu, World War II, and then what a terrible year 1968 was, and then the challenges that we're facing now. But that ideal of service is something that needs to carry on.
That's great. You guys have been in existence, if I'm not mistaken, 56 years. Or is that 58 years?
It will be 56 in August.
Yeah, in August. That's right. Yeah, be 58 during the what is a 250-year anniversary?
Sesquibicentennial.
Sesquibicentennial in 2 more years. Then you all will be 58.
I had to look that up.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
We appreciate you having us on. We really appreciate the opportunity. Also want to invite people, business representatives who are interested in service above self. We would love to have you. We meet Wednesdays at noon. Give any of us a call, and we'd love to invite you to come visit with us.
Anyone that wants to make a difference in the community, that's who we are.
Yes,
And you still meet down at the Lions Club building, right?
Mhm.
we do.
Good.
Again, showing the
Sharing.
cooperation of the different
Sharing. That's
organizations.
right. That's great. Cool. And you have a good meal.
Sheila's provides the meal.
Awesome. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and you guys ready for the 4-way test?
We're ready.
All right.
I'll start it.
Okay.
The 4-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First,
Is
Is
it
it
The truth.
second,
is
Is
it
it fair to all
concerned?
concerned?
third,
Will it
Be
build
beneficial.
goodwill?
Better friendships.
No.
fourth.
Will it be beneficial to all
Well
concerned?
Fourth. Okay, all right. Will it be beneficial to us?
All
Thank
right.
you very much. Okay. Yeah, perfect. You guys did great.
Okay. We will see you next week. I do have a great guest lined up. You don't want to miss next week. So see you next week at 1 o'clock. Thanks for tuning in. And if you can come to the Bank Rotary Romance Raffle tonight, boy, holler at one of us. Get you a
Right
ticket.
here at the
Good
map.
night.
Yeah, right
Yes.
here. See ya.
So that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks.
And
I messed up on number 3.
Yeah,
and
but that's okay.
so hopefully
Oh, we still
we-
I haven't ended it yet here.
oh,
My
okay.
producer
Hi,
left
everybody.
us.
Oh, I thought when you
Here's the
X,
expert.
it was off.
There he is. Get us ended. We're done.
Yes.
Sorry.
Mr.